GM gets an 11% ownership in Nikola, and Wall Street likes the story. Both stocks yesterday, General Motors and Nikola, up. We get a little bit of reversal from that today. Let's get the details from the founder and executive chairman at Nikola Corporation. Trevor Milton is back with us. Trevor, first, congratulations. Street seems to love the story here, and I think most have now gotten the big picture headlines, but walk us through the details here on who gets what from the deal.
Yeah, so the idea here is that we had to find the best OEM in the world to help us manufacture the Nikola Badger. That's a multi-billion-dollar program. So with GM, what we did is we settled, with our board, we sat down, we said, who's the very best group in the world? We all decided that GM had the best offer for us. They're going to, just on their component pricing alone, it's going to save Nikola over $4 billion just in battery costs, and up to almost $10 billion in total program costs through all of our different programs. So it was a home run for Nikola to be able to find the best partner in the world that had supply chain, who had a factory, who had the batteries in major contract for cheap pricing, and who could help us take it to market. And it was big news yesterday. It was a great day. Obviously, stock up, comes down a little bit today. It corrects a little bit, and it's just an awesome announcement with GM. It was a big day.
Last time you were here, you promised that an announcement was coming for an OEM soon. Lived up to that. And now the question is, are they the OEM for how much? Just the Badger right now? I know you have other partners working on some of your other designs. Do you have now all the manufacturers you need for all your cars, or are there still deals to come?
So yeah, when we went public, we told the analysts that we'd do three things. One is one of the largest orders of electric vehicles. Number two would be an OEM partner for the for the Nikola Badger, which was just announced yesterday. That's the biggest one. And the third one is a partner for the hydrogen network build out. And we've completed 2 out of the 3 in the first month. We told the analysts we'd do it by year's end. So we only have one more to go. That's the hydrogen station network partnership, and that'll be announced before year's end. So we've got everything lined up perfect. Badger's all solidified, our heavy duty trucks are solidified, and now comes our hydrogen station. Once we hit that, it's essentially a home run.
So right now, do you know what the breakdown is going to be in terms of how the workflow goes through producing the Badger? Whose employees are going to be working on what? Do you need to have hiring, or is GM going to be providing that? I know that you'll be using their battery tech, so that's been at least specifically described so far. But what's the workflow look like? Do you know how many employees you're going to need, how much you're going to pay them, or if it's coming from GM?
Yeah, that was part of the in-kind contribution from General Motors, is that they would agree to test, validate, homologate, and bring to production the Nikola Badger. That'll require thousands of people. They have those people because the way these OEMs work is they have tons of programs, and everyone is utilized on every program. So it really makes sure that their employees are at full efficiency. And so with Nikola, that was one of the big in-kind contributions. Is GM got a $2 billion, 11% stake in Nikola. And in exchange for that, they're going to help us do all that work. So it eliminates our need to go out and hire 5,000 people to manage this program. They're going to handle it, which is a huge home run for Nikola.
Okay, so for those that are following along with the story here, because it's been moving so fast and there's a lot of trading excitement, investing excitement around the electric vehicle space, do you describe Nikola as the company is a blueprint maker, a design? It's not necessarily a car maker, right? I mean, GM's making the car.
We are actually a full OEM. We just decided to partner with GM on this. So this is how it works. We actually built the Nikola Badger from the ground up ourselves, the whole thing. And you guys will see that in about 2 or 3 months at Nikola World for the first time. But what we did is we went to GM, and when we sat down, they looked at all of our components and their components, and we figured out which ones we could cross-share to drive our costs down. And I'm telling you, GM's costs are 30 to 50% less than our costs. These guys are amazing at purchasing. Sure. So they helped us come in, and we used their certain parts of their platforms to drive our costs down. So Nikola is a full OEM. We're going to be selling it directly to consumers, and we'll be servicing it as well. GM's going to be the manufacturer on record for the powertrain. So it really just helps us drive our costs down, but we're actually doing most of the IP internally at Nikola.
So what's the important IP that's coming from you guys? Because the batteries, which seem to be a really important part of this, that's going to come from GM's tech.
Yeah, so the battery supply for the cells come from GM, the cells in the module. So the rest of the vehicle, like the over-the-air updating, the software, the controls, the infotainment, the design of the vehicle, the cab, the interior of the cab, even the driver profile, even all the way down to suspension, that all comes from Nikola with some support of GM's integration team. But GM's going to handle they've already built a multi-billion-dollar platform for their electric truck platform. So we took our technology and our existing Badger, we overlaid it on theirs, used what we could, implemented theirs, and then we built the rest around ours. So it's probably 70% Nikola, 30% GM when it comes to the parts that are really important to us. But GM's helping us 100% on the whole truck, and they're in charge of the program, which, I mean, that's 100 years of knowledge you could never dream of getting yourself.
And it seems like a good match from that perspective. They know vehicle supply lines, of course. They know how to produce them in mass. In terms of what it's going to mean for a Nikola stockholder, I know that right now, obviously, GM owns part of the company after this, yep. 11%. In terms of the profitability split, how do we think about that? When someone buys a Badger, is it all just going to you and then GM gets the money through the ownership in the company? Or are there going to be certain patents that are exclusive to each party that then could be used in other places, that could be used for other vehicles or other partnerships?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that because not many people do. The way it works is Nikola gets all the revenue from the truck. We pay a small margin to GM, and it helps drive down their cost on their platform, which for them is their savings. That's how they make their money. And also they make their money on obviously Nikola's stock, Nikola's ownership. They have an 11% stake that's locked up over a 3-year period. They're tranches every year. So they have a vested interest to make sure that we succeed. I mean, imagine this. You look at like Rivian or Tesla. Tesla's been around for over 10 years. Rivian's been working on a pickup truck as well. None of those have the supply chain that General Motors have. They've got over 100 years of manufacturing experience. They've got the best pricing than anyone else in the world. They're building, 7 or 8 millions and millions of cars a year. We get all that advantage day one. And that's a pretty incredible thing because it's like, no one else gets that. We're going to be competitive cost-wise on every part in our entire vehicle, and it's just something you don't get anywhere else.
Trevor, the duration of the agreement and the partnership on the Badger, how long does that go for? And the reason I ask is just, again, if there is this pretty important split between who's producing what. I know you mentioned a lot of the cool stuff from the experience of driving the car is coming from Nikola. A lot of the things that are running the car seem like they're coming from GM, the battery and the engineering behind it. Is there anything to stop 5 years from now or 3 years from now or with some timeline in the future where then somebody else could make those other things that Nikola does? Will there be competitive threats down the road if you're not making the core parts?
So nothing stops us from making all those parts on any of our other programs, right? I mean, obviously, we're going to use everything we can with them to drive down our costs, and we want to jointly, all OEMs actually do this, which is kind of cool. But this allows us to really drive down our cost. We have a 6-year agreement with them on this program because normally truck programs don't go more than 6 years. They're out of date by then. Everyone wants a new truck every few years. So we have a 6-year agreement on that and a 10-year agreement on the supply chain, so we can access their parts bin, everything else for over 10 years. And by then we'll have our entire supply chain and additional parts built out on our side with those same vendors allowing us to continue on. And I hope that this is just the first of many with General Motors. I'm hoping that we're able to this is successful, and then we can just keep on building with them, which would be pretty cool.
What will you use to gauge that success of the deal? Just Badgers sold? What's going to be the benchmark that investors should be looking for? I know the timeline is still largely the one you outlined previously, or maybe not. Has anything changed on the timeline? What's kind of the next thing we look for here in gauging the progress of this deal?
Yeah, so production begins in 2022, which is the same timeline we laid out, but what they've done is they've shaved off about a year of our timing, and they've added a year of additional stuff that is way more strict than ours. So, we're learning a lot, right? They're going to be validating and testing a truck to levels we've never even thought of. And that's a really important thing because when you hand a truck to a consumer, you want to make sure it's perfect. That's pretty much how the timeline breaks down, but I would judge us based upon how well we build this truck, how much in demand is the truck. We may not want to build all the demand that we get. We may end up saying, you know what, let's make this a very sought after vehicle. Let's make sure the demand's always more than the production. And sometimes that's a smart idea for your bottom line. And we may just do that because we're not trying to build 1 million vehicles a year. We're trying to make sure that we have an incredible brand that is that's sought after, that's profitable. That's the most important thing, is profitability. I don't want to be relying on government credits for my profitability.
Which are going to GM for this, right? They're getting the energy credits. At least that's what I understood from the press release. Is that correct, that they'll collect those credits?
They get 80% of them. We get the rest. So
Okay.
They will buy the rest of them from us as well. So they have the first right to buy the other 20%. And the credits will help us, but they're going to phase out eventually. And we'll never get the benefit for credits like other people have before us, because they've taken billions in credits, and the credits are kind of going away.
Okay. Hey, Trevor, for Nikola World, what's the big unveil then? What's the next thing we're waiting for?
Well, everyone gets to see the Nikola Badger in person. The whole world's wondered if the Nikola Badger is real. It is. Obviously, GM wouldn't do a deal with us if it wasn't. You get to see the Nikola Badger in full glory at Nikola World, which is pretty amazing. And GM will just help us even make it better. And this is there's just so many exciting things with Nikola. If you think about it, the last thing I'll say is we've laid out exactly how we're going to hit profitability over the next 2 years, where we go with revenue. The numbers are huge. We're over $10 billion backlog for our trucks, billions in our Nikola Badger backlog. For revenue-wise, I couldn't be more happy with where we're at right now, and it's a fun long-term story. So I appreciate you guys having me on, telling about it.
Hey, Trevor, when the Badger's on stage, is it going to have the GM parts in it for Nikola World?
This will have a couple in it, but we actually built it before we did the deal with GM.
Okay.
So
it's not the final car.
Huh?
It's not the final car we're going to see.
That's pretty close. It'll just have, now we're going to swap out all the regulators for GM, all their parts, all their windows, all their seats. We're going to swap it all out for GM parts after Nikola World.
You don't have to change the design of the car? Everything's the same size?
It'll change just a little bit, but it'll get better because they have better, they have better, what we call them like an H point, right, where the driver sits and looks and visibility. They're going to help us improve on all that. So the drivers will actually get a better truck in production than they get to see at Nikola World. But Nikola World, this truck is awesome. I mean, it's beautiful. It's going to be surprised.
All right, cool. Thanks, Trevor. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks
guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Mr. Milton is the founder and executive chairman at Nikola Corporation. Exciting stuff.